Fat Joe has been having a pretty active 2021. If you've been reading the headlines, not only has he been turning heads with his most recent commentaries on stuff like Versuz, but he's also had the headache of having to deal with some of his mixtapes like What Would Big Do 2021, now finding themselves off of streaming platforms. As much as that could already be hard to deal with, you can imagine that having people calling you a snitch out in public would be the nail in the coffin. And Fat Joe is not here for it and broke his silence once and for all. First of all, we have to back up to see where this all came from. Coming from his Terror Squad past, we have Cuban Link making the bold claim that Fat Joe has been linking info to the feds for a little while. That's just his word against Joe's though. What Cuban claims to have on him is even worse. What we got our hands on here is some actual paperwork from the government that actually has Fat Joe's legal name on the documents. Yeah, at that point it's hard to keep up your gangsta cred when it's literally in writing like that. It's even more of a problem when you find out that Fat Joe was originally making some bold claims about our boy 6ix9ine. When 6 was going through all his legal proceedings, you had Joe here talking about how he can no longer be 6's friend because of everything that had gone down, leaking info to the feds and backstabbing his own people. Now, we have Joe looking like he's doing the exact same thing, but much more twisted. In this case, what Joe had on his hands actually involved someone losing their life, which is certainly going to involve some explaining once he heads back to his old stomping grounds. That's just the groundwork though. Now, we need to hear what Joe himself actually thinks about this whole thing. After all, we've only gotten Cuban Link side of the story at this point, so we gotta give Joe a chance to defend himself in front of the squad. Taking to Instagram, Joe came up with a photo of himself with the single caption of, "When the hate don't work, they start telling lies." Though he didn't call out Cuban Link by name, those aren't words you say lightly when you have something like being called a snitch on the line. If he had just decided to wait the whole thing out, that would be the end of it. That's not what he got though, as Fat Joe wanted to set the record straight. Things definitely got thrown for a loop when Fat Joe took to Instagram again, and in a 50-minute clip that went around the hip-hop world, Joe has seemed to come correct in defending himself here.
Joe cracked the dawn. Has never been a rat in his life, has never told on a person in his life. I kill myself before I tell on somebody. Let's be clear about that.
Claiming that anyone who even looked at the document probably covered certain parts of it up with a whiteout or something. Hell, that could open the door for Joe turning the whole thing back on Link and calling him the informant. Who knows at this point? Link may have ended up sealing his fate by even testing things by putting his paperwork out there. The fact that Fat Joe took the time out to make a clip like this speaks more volumes in the rap community than it probably should. If you were even considered as being a snitch, you wouldn't be mouthing off to your rivals on social media just for the hell of it. This man clearly has an axe to grind and could care less whether some informants start coming his way or not. Outside of the main controversy though, Joe seems to think that the whole thing was just done out of jealousy. In his eyes, the only reason anyone would try to do something like this is because they're trying to find some kind of dirt to drag him down. Given how long our man has been in the game, he now is sure that his legacy is secure, and he's not going to do anything to let anyone mess with him at this point. He even had a few choice words with the people who thought the Link's claims were legit, thinking that they just assumed that a man who made his millions can't still walk the streets he grew up on without having some sort of connection on the inside. In Joe's eyes, believing that he would even snitch is almost as bad as even alleging that he was the snitch at all. It's not like this whole back and forth has been a new thing either. Ever since the Terror Squad fell out back in the day, Joe and Link have never been all that friendly to each other. Given the fact that they've taken shots at each other in the past, it looks like Big Pun ceremony might have been what pushed everything over the edge here, since Joe wasn't present to see his former squad member be recognized. You can say that something came up, but if it's something as important as honoring your musical blood, brother, you can't just let that go. Seeing how everything went down, though, it doesn't look like Link forgot about that either. From what Link has been saying in the news lately, all signs are pointing to Joe having some connection to the inside, down to the fact that he even called the paperwork Exhibit A in his post on Instagram. Then again, can we really take Cuban Link at his word here, though? I mean, this is a guy who's been having a feud with Joe for a long time now, so it's not out of the question that he try to get under his skin like this. On the other hand, going as far as to call the man a snitch is something that was never really on the table too often for gangsters like this. For most people, this is something you either do as a last resort to save your own skin, or it's below the belt and you're trying to bring him down for good. At the same time, the post that Joe made on Instagram might be a bit more of a loaded statement than anything else. Since he knows he's in some hot water right now, he's probably just looking to clear the air on everything and make sure that he's representing himself in the best way possible. After the decade of him clearing his name for almost an hour, you can tell that Joe is ready to throw hands if that means that it'll come to that. In this case, it doesn't really sound like it's about money or even his safety. It's about sending a message to Link to keep his mouth shut too. Who knows? Maybe Joe even has some dirt on Link that we don't know about, and Link is looking to save his own skin on the streets by outing Joe as an informant before anything can happen. Even though it's hard to really pick sides when it comes to the feds, it looks like Link is just looking to keep in good graces with the hood that raised him, because he knows how dangerous it can be if he steps out of line. If all the attention is directed at Joe right now, there's no reason for anyone to go after him. At the end of the day, it seems to just come down to credibility for both Joe and Link. These are guys who've been in the game for much longer than most of the hip-hop heads have even been listening to music. So, they're looking to secure their legacy as major players in the game and make sure that they're still being called OGs by the young kids coming up now. Link definitely has the opportunity to spread the dirt, but Joe seems to have a lot more going on under the hood right now. That hasn't stopped the community from coming to Joe's side though. If you take a look at any of the comments on Cuban's Instagram posts, there are tons of people willing to defend Joe, and you can even take Cuban to task for trying to frame him. Like one user commented, "That shit is fake. Official paperwork should have government names. This shit has a lot of street names. Don't play yourself." Now all of a sudden, 20, 30 years later. And then there are others who are just tired of Link trying to go after Joe for years now, and it all looks pretty petty. And while others are calling it just a stunt for clout, like this user who said, "If he read it, why nobody ever spoke on it? People be reaching for clout nowadays." As authentic as a government document may look, it gets a little more complicated when you have almost an entire fan base saying that the thing is fake. Cuban isn't backing down, but he might want to fact check his sources before doubling down anytime soon. Now that Joe has laid all his cards out on the table though, all we can do now is just wait for Link to come out with any other evidence that he might have stashed away somewhere. Joe has thrown down the gauntlet, and after fighting his uphill battle, now it's time to see what Link has to say in response. If Joe wasn't actually a snitch though, Link might want to protect his neck over the next few weeks. But that's all we know at this point. What do y'all think of Fat Joe being called a snitch? Do you think Link has finally gotten a drop on him, or do you think Joe has gotten something coming for him on the horizon? Leave a comment below and let us know. Other than that, be sure to keep tuned into RIZZLE so you don't miss out on some of the best hip-hop news coming down the pipeline. Take it easy. Catch you later, and keep it RIZZLE.